program from, press that share button so that you and all your followers and friends can join us in tonight's discussion. I see Viva Deo Saran, Jagdeep, Fred Ramlagan, Shamo Gir, Nalini Naidu, Kumar Singh, Rajendra Etwaru, Basil Siraj, Bibi Shabira Hussein, and so many of you are already on this live from across the globe. Welcome, welcome, and share the live so that all your friends and followers can join us. And use the comment section to voice your views, ask your questions, express your thoughts, but no insulting and no racism. And of course, I have been attracting a large number of detractors in recent time, most of them from Team Mohammed. They come on the program, they come in the comment section, hundreds of them, all of them with fake profiles. And they curse and they abuse, and they put their blue hearts and all sorts of things. These things are not going to win elections. And please don't contaminate my program with your toxic message or messages. Go and campaign elsewhere. Nobody on this live voting in that direction, I can assure you. Anyhow, let's begin. And as the election campaign intensifies, we continue to hear from different political parties. And what I want to focus on tonight is what I consider to be outlandish messages, ridiculous outpourings, incredulous promises that continue to be made by political parties and political leaders on the campaign hustings. Now, every political leader has freedom of expression and has the right to promise whatever he or she wishes. Whether the electorate believes them is a matter for the electorate. But what I find objectionable is the level of the promises, the quality of what is being said. Now, we are an educated people. Our population is no longer, as some may think, incapable of detecting what is reality and what is surreal, what is ludicrosity and what is fair and reasonable, what is credible and what is incredulous. I believe that a large majority of our population is capable of at least making those distinctions and deciphering those differentiations. And as a collective, our electorate must take a position. And I would like to see that happen at this election. That our electorate must deal condignly with politicians who disrespect them by making these outlandish statements and making these incredulous promises. I believe that a political leader who does that has no respect for the people to whom he is speaking. He either thinks that they are extraordinarily gullible, and that he is smart, or he simply intends to deceive them. I don't know which one is worse, but on either basis, the electorate should take a position and react. An electorate has the most effective way to react, and that is not to vote for a politician who continues to insult their intelligence. Because that is what these politicians are doing. They are insulting the intelligence of the electorate, or they simply think that you are incapable of seeing through the plain deceit that they are trying to perpetrate against you. And either of those things amount to mental abuse. Either of those things amount to mental abuse. And politicians, political leaders have a responsibility not to violently abuse the electorate in that manner. And if they don't care, then the electorate has a remedy. And I invite you, come September the 1st, I invite you to use that remedy. And that remedy is your vote. Use it. Politicians must stop this level of brazen stupidity and dotishness. They must stop. And it is only the electorate can make them stop. So against that backdrop, I want to highlight a couple of things. And I want to begin with Leader of the Opposition's statements, which he made apparently at Buxton Emancipation Celebration, in which he said that he told the EU observers that if the PPP believes that they would rig these elections, they wouldn't like the outcome. We will not allow them to rig the elections. Now, why would Mr. Norton, leader of the PNC, choose to make that type of statement, having regard to the undisputed fact backed up by volumes and volumes of incontrovertible evidence that his party, the People's National Congress, rigged elections repeatedly in this country. 1968, they rigged. 1973, they rigged. 1980, they rigged. They rigged the referendum to bring in a new constitution. They rigged in 1985. They rigged so massively that they gave themselves over a two-thirds majority, beginning from 1973. In 1985, they almost took, I believe it was, they left the PPP with 9 seats. 9 seats. They almost took the whole parliament with the rigging. Against that backdrop, and then you have the 2020 debacle, which is still fresh in the minds of Guyanese, the diplomatic community, the CARICOM leaders, and all the international observers, international election observers, who are here in the country right now, including the EU, who stood and eyewitnessed 5 months of continuous, relentless attempts to rig the results or to alter the results of the 2020 elections. And these people claim that they have won the elections, and up to now, 5 years hence, cannot produce a statement of poll to show how they have won. In all of this, from 1968, the victim of the electoral fraud and rigging has been the PPP. Up to 2020, the attempts were being made to take 160,000 votes from the PPP and give it to the PNC, APNU, AFC. That was the magnitude and thrust of the fraud. So again, the PPP would have been the victim. Against that historical backdrop that every sensible Guyanese know, and every leader of this country with some intelligence and integrity would readily admit, why would you go and make a statement like this, that we will not allow them, the PPP, to rig elections? That is the type of ludicrosity, the brazen level of stupidity that I'm speaking about. And that is why I said last night in Enterprise that this level of deceit and dotishness must be removed from our political landscape. We are a better people than this. We deserve better than this on an election campaign. And I'm inviting voters to punish political leaders who descend to this level of dotishness, or who would like to insult their intelligence to such an extent, or who has such a massive disregard for the intellect of you, the voter. All those, whichever variable you choose, I would like to see that come 1st of September 2025, our electorate teach politicians a lesson so that next elections and just after this election, we will have issues, constructive engagements, issues being canvassed in electoral campaigns, developmental plans being debated, job creation being issues, poverty reduction. That is what I want to hear. Campaign based upon those principles, not this hogwash that you are being bombarded with day in, day out. So that is the first point I want to make, this level of foolishness. We must eschew it. And voters, you have that power to tell these politicians that enough is enough with this type of foolishness. Enough is enough. Now, I move on to deal with, along the same theme, another issue that is equally being kicked about as a political football. And it is this extrajudicial killing that the PPP is constantly being accused of. And the cry for justice against the PPP by opposition politicians, APNU in the main, and AFC. And I want to examine it a little tonight. So, at some rally in New Amsterdam, a promise was made to dig up extrajudicial killings, including the gunning down of PPP Minister Sakshaw, and that was carried in the news. I want to begin by reminding viewers that they campaigned heavily going to the 2015 elections on this very platform, that they will do commissions of inquiries, they will renew investigations into a whole host of what they described as extrajudicial killings, and killings that they accused the PPP of being connected with or responsible for. Crummy Wing being one of them. From the moment they went and they campaigned on these things, making promises within 100 days they will do these commissions of inquiry. Within 100 days, commission of inquiries. I recall on this very program, I called upon President Granger and the coalition government on numerous occasions to hold that inquiry into Crummy Wing's killing. Mind you, a man has been charged for the murder of Crummy Wing. A magistrate court has found that a prima facie case has been made out against that man, and that man has been committed to stand trial for the murder of Crummy Wing before a judge and the jury. And that is how the justice system of Guyana works. That, when you say you want justice and somebody's dead, and that is what happens. Somebody got to get charged, and once there is evidence, they go through the criminal justice system of a preliminary inquiry and then a trial, and then you have appeals follow. That is the justice system. So when you're calling for justice, I don't know what else you want. But relentless attempts were made to implicate the PPP, and me in particular, in Crummy Wing's killing. And that is why I bit the bullet and I called upon them on this program, and I wrote it in many unruly horse articles. calling upon them to hold the inquiry. They never did. But up to today, they hold up these killings like a badge of honor on their shoulders. And they make great political rhetoric of it. They want justice for Crummy Wing. They were in government. David Granger, the president, on the 5th of December 2019, while appearing on a Hits and Jams radio show, Hot Seat, cited the lack of evidence and witnesses as the reasons why inquiries have not been held into the killing of persons following the 202 jailbreak and the ensuing crime waves. Granger himself, as president, was asked frontally about this long line of extrajudicial killings that they spoke about when they were in the opposition, that they promised that they will inquire into. And here it is, 4 years into his government, he is admitting on a national radio show that there is no evidence of the same extrajudicial killings that they are now again promising that they're going to reopen. This level of duplicity, this level of deceit, this level of rank dotishness is what I am speaking about. Right here. This is it. Let's move on to another one. Henry Boys. They love to invoke the Henry Boys name, calling for justice for Henry Boys. Henry Boys were horribly killed and their bodies mutilated in the backlands of West Berbice. The APNU supporters and leaders started a vicious rumor that they were killed by PPP supporters after the 2020 elections. That is how it all started, just after we got into the government. And they burn roads and they beat people and they rob and they loot and they cause mayhem on the roadways of West Coast Berbice. The Guyana Police Force brought in the Regional Security System, the RSS, to lead in the investigation. 2 persons have since been charged with the Henry murder. These 2 persons have confessed to the murder. They have appeared before a magistrate at West Coast Berbice and have both been committed to stand trial because the magistrate found that there is sufficient evidence for them to go and stand trial. That is the criminal justice system at work. But every time they get an opportunity, they want justice for Henry Boys. What more justice? But they wear this as a band of honor now. This gives their fictitious struggle some type of authenticity. They can invoke the deaths of people and create this figment that there is some injustice. When 2 persons have been arrested and confessed to the crime, but because it doesn't implicate the People's Progressive Party, there is no justice. That's the point I want to make. This level of stupidity must be condemned by the electorate. Those who wish to continue with this type of lyrical nonsense, election cycle after election cycle, well, you can continue with it. I'm speaking to sensible people who will be voting. They must stop bombarding you with these fictions and falsehoods. They must stop insulting your intelligence. Another one whose name they like to invoke, and this one is invoked to balance the racism, because all these things have a racial undercurrent. They all have a racial undercurrent in them. So to balance, when they speak about Henry Boys, they invoke Harish Singh. Now Harish Singh was murdered, killed by a member of the Henry Boys family and others, arising out of the same vicious rumor that they spread, that the neighboring village of Cotton Tree had something to do with the Henry Boys murder. When the two persons who confessed to the crime, one is from Quarantine and one is from West Coast. Nothing to do with the village of Cotton Tree. But they want to put this racist and political twist. So they bring in Harish Singh because he lives next door. And Harish Singh was also murdered, but murdered by the Henry family, some relatives of theirs, and it was inspired by the rumor that they spread. 4 persons, I believe, have been charged with Harish Singh's murder, and they have also been committed to stand trial in the High Court by a magistrate who found sufficiency of evidence against them at a preliminary inquiry. So the justice system is delivering. But these political fraudsters who want to exploit these unfortunate tragedies are making it political narratives now and using it as ammunition. That is what they're doing. It comes down all the way to Adriana Young, the young 11-year-old who was found dead in a pool at Tuition. 3 autopsy, 3 forensic experts came and did the autopsy and concluded that drowning was the result of the cause of death. Drowning was the cause of death. 3 persons who don't know anybody in Guyana. Government brought them. One of them chosen by the family from the United States. 3 professional people. The doctor representing the interests of the family was present. The lawyer representing the interests of the family, a PNC lawyer, was present. Because those 2 professionals expressed a view that contradicted the political narrative that they concocted. They turned their attack guns on these 2 professionals. Darren Wade, and I can't remember the doctor's name. That is what they do, so that they can continue to spin the narrative. You think they care about this girl, Adriana Young? No. What they want was the narrative to keep going, to implicate. They wanted a political connection. And if Darren Wade and the other doctors stood in their way, they will march them out. They wanted a political connection to the PPP and the government. But they found none. They took the dead body all the way to the United States. They got another person who said exactly what we said. The body would have lost its forensic value. There is no meaningful conclusion could have been arrived at. Travis Chase asked the lady the very question that I said, whether the body would have lost its forensic value. He asked the lady the very question, and the lady said yes. So that failed. They didn't get to connect the government. They didn't get to connect the PPP to that killing. We brought in an expert from the Royal Mounted Police of Canada who conducted the investigations and found nothing incriminating. No sign of violence. The body doesn't have it. All the forensic pathologists said that. No sign of violence, but they want somebody to be charged for murder. And even, I'm sure, if somebody was charged for murder, it would have still been the wrong person in their eyes. Unless maybe if I was charged, or if the president was charged, or Vice President Jack Day was charged, maybe then they would have been satisfied. They keep these vicious cyclical arguments going whole day about wanting justice, wanting justice. What they want is injustice. They want innocent people to be charged to satisfy their political narrative. And that is why I want the electorate to make a decision this election about this level of diatribe to which they are subject on the political platforms and elsewhere at the hands of these politicians. When they were in government, I did the research. 41 persons died in police custody from 2015 to 2020. 41 people. I represented many of the families. You know, not once did I ever accuse Ramjatan or the Granger government of extrajudicial killing. Not once. I represented the families of many of those, that 41 persons who died in police custody. And I got from the state, by winning cases, millions and millions of dollars in compensation for those families. That is what a good lawyer does. That is what a responsible politician does. Instead, what they do, they take the debts. They never sue the state for anybody. It's only when I started to sue in 2015 to 2020 that they ever file proceedings. Now they're filing. I don't think they knew that they could have filed. That is the level of their incompetence. I got millions and millions of dollars for the relatives of the deceased who died in police custody. There was no politics involved. 99.9 of the cases where people die in police custody have nothing to do with government, nothing to do with politics. But these guys, they stoke the fire of racism every time the victim is an Afro-Guyanese, is young black people being murdered by an Indian government. You know how many Indians died in police custody when they were in government? 39-year-old Lal Bachchan was killed in Saudi lockups on June the 31st, 2019. 39-year-old Khalid Charan Sewak was beaten and killed in Sparendam lockup, 28th of January 2019. I have two names here. I can go on. I represented these families, among others, and got millions of dollars for them in compensation. I never said one day that these people were killed because of their race, or they were killed by a black government, or they were the victims of extrajudicial killing, and somehow that has some political connection. But these racist narratives and strategies that they're employing and repeating over and over again is what I am speaking about. Let us go to the extrajudicial killing that they're speaking about and how it started. First of all, in the year 2000, 1999-2000, there was a notorious criminal by the name of Lyndon Blackie London. I'm sure you can remember that name, some of you. He was wanted for over a dozen robberies, several rapes, several murders. And he engaged the police in a hotel in Eccles in a gunfight. He was in the hotel and the police got information that he was there. And he was firing at the police. And the police fired back. And he got killed. They made him into a martyr, rather than compliment the police for taking out a wanted man who was firing at them. Lethal fire. The police fired back and killed him, as every competent policeman should do when under fire. They took his body, described him as Robin Hood. You know who is Robin Hood? Robin Hood is that fabled story of a man who championed the cause of the poor by taking from the rich and giving it to the poor. That is how they martyred this notorious serial murderer and rapist. That he was taking from Guyanese who were well off and giving it to poor people. I don't know who he was giving it to. I don't know. I never knew that he ran any charitable scheme anywhere. Complete disregard for the people whom he killed, the grieving families, the rape victims, the victims whom he entered their homes and terrorized as a kick down the door bandit. Complete disregard for all those people. Took the Guyana flag, draped it around his coffin, and rolled it along. They took it at the Square of the Revolution, where they had a big funeral, and rolled the body of this slain bandit as if he's a national hero. That is what these people did. And today, they want to link others to criminal and violent criminality. And promising they go hold inquiries. The brazen stupidity must end. That inspired a whole movement in this country. That same incident where they glorified the criminals. And a jailbreak soon happened, in which 5 persons escaped the Camp Street prison. They killed a young prison officer and nearly killed another. And these 5 bandits opened a reign of terror in this country never witnessed before and after. They were hiding out in Buxton, held the village of Buxton at ransom. They were raping people's daughters during the day And in the night they were killing businessmen. They were kidnapping businessmen. They shot and killed dozens of police officers. The police force lost many officers through death and through resignation because of the attack that they were facing at the hands of these bandits. A Guyanese was being killed per day. And every week there was a kidnapping with millions and millions of ransom money being paid. And invariably, the victims were of one race. Many leaders of the PNC were seen, and it was widely rumored, were seen going into Buxton, and it was widely rumored that they were meeting with these bandits in the backlands of Buxton. Leaders of the PNC, and one of them who went and was a founding member of the AFC. I lived in this country. We lived through all of this. A couple hundred people were killed, including law enforcement officers, victims of crimes, persons who get killed in crossfires between bandits and other people. And this lasted for several years. Leaders and supporters of the PNC, leaders and supporters of the PNC were publicly hailing these escapees as freedom fighters. They call them freedom fighters openly on TV. The same PNC, the same APNU, when this country was under siege and people were dying like nits at the hands of these bandits, they were saluting them as freedom fighters. Never condemned the violence as a major political party, giving mixed signals at best. All these persons who died are the very people that they are saying are the victims of extrajudicial killing. And they're putting that at the feet of the People's Progressive Party. And that is what they're churning out as campaign material now. These people are sadistic. That is why they couldn't hold the inquiry. What are you going to hold the inquiry? Half of them will go to jail. But we are going to hold the inquiry. The General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, who was the president during this period, is accused of being responsible for all of this. And we had already prepared in terms of reference, but we had to go to elections. We will deal with it. We will deal with it. The PNC, don't worry. We will get to the bottom of it. And we will know who were responsible for the extrajudicial killings. The Stabrook News did a documentary. And dealt with all the people who they were saying were extrajudicially killed. You know, people got knocked down on the road. I know a man who got electrocuted. On a plucking machine during that period. And they have him as being extrajudicially killed. They just compile a list just like that to give their struggle authenticity. This fictitious struggle that they fabricated. And then you're talking about actual involvement in criminal conduct. And we have the story of Brian Hamilton, where after he was killed, Nigel Hughes was seen at the scene of the crime removing a tape that ought to have recorded what transpired, and said that the police gave him permission to remove that tape. The crime chief issued a statement on the April 18th, 2003, denies giving attorney permission to remove tape, published in Starbrook News. Then let's go on. During the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry, the evidence of that commission revealed that a cache of high-powered arms and accompanying ammunition were handed over by the army to the Young Socialist Movement, the youth arm of the PNC. Those weapons, bearing the same serial numbers, were subsequently found in the hands of bandits who robbed a bank at Rose Hall in 2006. The Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry brought that out. And that's evidence under oath. An international commission of inquiry. The army during the PNC handed the ammunition and arms to the YSM, and those very ammunition, those very arms were found in the hands of bandits who robbed a bank in Rose Hall. In 2006. And then you had, let me deal with some more issues that I have here. You had a one second. Then in February 27, 2006, February 27, 2006, we all heard a conversation between the sitting Attorney General. No, he was not Attorney General. He was a member of Parliament. And the sitting Commissioner of Police, Winston Felix at the time. And they were discussing, and Felix admitted in that conversation that he had to deflect the police away from Agricola, where Feynman was carrying out a slaughter of 8 persons. The Commissioner of Police telling a PNC leader who was then a member of Parliament that I had to divert the police away from Agricola. And Felix word, I had to help all you out. I had to help all you out. That is what Felix is telling Massey Williams on the phone when he diverted the police away from a massacre ongoing where 8 people were slaughtered by the Feynman gang. And these people are talking about criminality. And then we had the criminal violence that was unleashed in October 2012 when Nigel Hughes threatened the President Ramotar to dismiss Home Affairs Minister Rohi because the police had shot somebody in Agricola, and said that if the president doesn't dismiss Rohi as his minister, he is going to cause mayhem. And mayhem he caused. He called out the people out of Agricola to block the road, burnt, beat people, molest women, sexually assaulted young girls, discommoded thousands of commuters. People couldn't go home for that day and that night. And these guys want to speak about violence, there, I'm going to deal with it in the conclusion. And then you had the Lusignan massacre murder trial, where the foreman of the jury was banned for life because it was found out that he was a long-standing client of Nigel Hughes, who appeared for the accused in the Lusignan massacre trial, the murder of 11 people, including women and children, in their sleep. Significantly, the judge held an inquiry, a special inquiry, where he asked every member of the jury, whether they know the accused lawyers or they know the prosecutors. Nigel Hughes appeared for this man for a period lasting several years, and that man sitting on the jury there. And the man remained quiet, and Nigel Hughes remained quiet. He was banned for life. The DPP issued a public statement condemning Nigel Hughes' conduct. And then you have Royden Williams and Dennis Williams, the two members of that same gang who went over to Bartica and did the Bartica massacre. They were part of the Lusignan massacre. They went over to Bartica and they did the Bartica massacre, killing another 11 persons. They are both dead. Nigel Hughes appearing in a court of appeal, trying, according to him, to clear their names. When an appeal is filed, and that's what the law says as far as I know, when an appeal is filed by a person in a criminal matter and that person dies, the appeal dissipates. That is what I understand the law to be. But forget the law. This gentleman is going this extra mile. These people kill dozens of people. This is a politician who wants to lead. And going to the court of appeal, even after these people are dead. And they have been convicted, so I can call them murderers. They are serial murderers. Even after they are dead, he's going to represent them in the court of appeal. And then, of course, how can we forget the ballot box martyrs of the 1973 elections, where Bholanath, Parmanan and Jagan Ramesar were killed by the army simply because they were peacefully protesting the illegal removal of ballot boxes from a polling station at 62 village, or the quarantine goes. Murder them. And these people are speaking about violence. Then Father Bernard Dark, a Jesuit priest, British born, was a photographer with the Catholic Standard newspapers and was taking photographs of a WPA march and the House of Israel, an organization that used to do political work for the PNC, stabbed him to death in broad daylight in front of the Home Affairs Ministry's building, a couple feet away from the Brickdam police station. Then we have Ohina Kowama. He was also killed, a WPA activist, killed by police. These are known political killings. Edward Dublin, killed by the House of Israel. Then, of course, Walter Rodney, assassinated after a bond, radio, a walkie-talkie radio was handed to him by an army officer. And inside the radio was a concealed bomb that went off in his lap, killing him and seriously injuring his brother. President Ramatar appointed a commission of inquiry comprising of distinguished international jurists from the Caribbean. Sir Richard Cheltenham from Barbados, Sina Jairam from Trinidad, and Jacqueline Samuels Brown, QC. They were the commissioners. And they found, and I'll read, they found that the government of the day, that's the PNC government, and agents of the state were responsible for Rodney's assassination. I quote, I'm quoting from them now. We have no hesitation in holding that Gregory Smith was responsible for Dr. Walter Rodney's death on the 13th of June 1980, and that in so doing he was acting as an agent of the state, having been aided and abetted so to do by individuals holding positions of leadership in state agencies and committed to carry out the wishes of the PNC administration. That is in cold, hard print. That is the finding of the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry. So, my friend, I come back to this narrative that they are spewing. If this is their record, and everything that I've said here, I can verify, and it is verifiable easily. All of the information I gather here, they are in the public domain that I just disseminated. All in the public domain. You have not heard anything that is not out there. If that is your background and that is your track record, then why are you insulting people's intelligence by saying that when you get into government you're going to do these things, when knowing full well you can't do these things? In fact, I thought that I would spend tonight, a large part of tonight's program, in examining the track record of these persons, these politicians and these political parties on the issue of violence and extrajudicial killings. Because I am tired of hearing about who wants justice and this one not getting justice. Quindon Bacchus is another name. A policeman was charged for the murder of Quindon Bacchus. One was charged for manslaughter for Quindon Bacchus. Quindon Bacchus sued the state, and the state paid, I think, was $20 million in compensation to the family. Yet, you hear there is no justice for Quindon Bacchus. Quindon Bacchus went in the Baghdad of Haslington to sell an illegal firearm to the police. Those are the facts. It was a sting operation. He was not no church boy. He went there to sell an illegal gun to the police. And something went south. And they started to shoot each other. And that is how he got killed. But people have been charged with murder and manslaughter. So how you're not getting justice? They're not getting the justice because they want a political connection to be made to these killings, and there is none. And that is what they have been doing to all these tragedies. They convert them into political football, and they have people on the streets burning, beating, and looting. That's what they did with Quinton Bacchus, and that's what they did with Adriana Young. And the people of this country, come September the 1st, must take advantage of that and tell these politicians once and for all that you will not tolerate their abuse, their mental abuse of you. You will not tolerate their manipulation of you. You will not become their political football anymore. That is my appeal to you here tonight. Or you can continue to be abused if you wish. The matter is a matter for you. I would have done my job and my sense of duty as a citizen to try to persuade you against it. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for spending the past hour with me. I think we have covered a lot of important issues. And I'll be back on the campaign trail from tomorrow. See you. Follow us on Facebook. Attend our meetings. The meetings are getting larger. The energy level is great. And we are cruising on our way, but no need for anyone to become careless, complacent, arrogant, or overconfident. One step at a time, and we have to do the work. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.